Hey friends, it's me, Leslie. Welcome to the Page of Our Lives podcast. With the start of a new school year, there can be some obstacles to overcome. From making new friends to figuring out how to open up your locker to having patience in the car line. Am I right, parents? Going back to school can raise anxiety levels for kids and adults. On today's show, Paige and I share a few ideas to help you and your student grow in confidence when facing something new. We hope it encourages you to keep going, even when the butterflies are trying to get the best of you. So let's overcome those new school year obstacles together on this episode of The Page of Our Lives. Hey friends, welcome back to another episode of The Page of Our Lives. We're so excited you're here with us. Paige and I decided that for this week's show, that's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about a page of our lives. And this has been a busy week for me. I know it's been a busy week for you too, Paige. It's back to school week at our house. And so it's been, well, there's a lot to share on this page from my
There's a lot. That's right. That's right. I want to be able to look back at this episode one day and be like, oh, you thought that was hard.
Oh, no, it's so true.
Yeah, I don't want it to be hard. This is just a page from our life. We've had a lot going on with, trying to get school started for us with homeschooling, picking out homeschool stuff, picking out homeschool curriculum, picking out classes. I've learned a whole lot this week. But
what have you learned? Tell us what you've learned this week.
Okay, so
what's your win?
My win. Okay, I have adulted a lot this week. I just want you to know. And what I mean by that, like I'm probably a little bit on the borderline, like a hoarder for fun. Okay. Like I really like a good time. I like to do fun adventures. I like to do all kinds of fun stuff. I do not like all administrative type tasks. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that is all that I've done all week long is administrative type stuff. Like, for instance, I'm trying to get my real estate license. I've been trying to do that for a very long time. I finally passed the test.
Yay.
Woo woo. But once you pass the test, I still have one more test that I have to take. Like I have to take a state test. But in order to do that, I had to go to the bank to get things like an affidavit notarized to say that I'm lawfully a citizen of the United States. So, I've had I feel like I've had lots of little irons in the fire. So I've been trying to pass the real estate test. We're trying to buy our house. So I've been having to figure out all the finances and all the stuff to be able to buy the house. I've got back taxes that I needed to file and get in order. I've had to do all of that stuff and then pick school stuff for my kids. And for those of you, most of you know, if you've listened to us at all, that I have always homeschooled. And I realized why I'm a homeschooler, because I tried to sign up my oldest son for a class at what's called the Career Center. Well, you'd think you'd sign up the kid and it's fine. No, you have to go to the school board, pay a fee over there. Once you've paid the fee, then you got to wait for somebody else to call you and go register your kid at the actual school. So then I had to, God bless all you parents who go through this all the time. So then I filled out 100 forms to make him officially registered. And then I'm like, can somebody say that they've seen these forms? I've called the Career Center multiple times. I still haven't gotten a call back from there. So now I'm like at the point, I'm like, I don't even want to do this. We'll just do something else. And this is why I told my friend Christy, I was like, I think I have a problem. I must have a problem with authority or something. She's like, no, I think your problem is with restraints. You do not like feeling restrained. And in the school system, you got to go with the flow. You have to go with their system.
There's a process.
They have a process and which works for them because they're having to corral the masses or whatever. But as a homeschooler, we're a lot more free range. And so
you're like chickens, basically.
Free range chickens. So anyways, I am like, yes, I was a public schooler, just so everybody knows. Like I went all through college, elementary, middle, high school, college, all of that stuff. I was always a public school kid. I don't have a problem with public school. Like I always thought that's what my kids would do. But then I married a homeschooler.
Yes.
And it has been rocking my world ever since. And so, because apparently, at least the homeschooler I married has always been like questioning, well, why do you do it this way? And have you thought about doing it this way? And I'm like, well, no, because the system says you should do it like this. And I'm like, now that I have transitioned to become like a homeschool mindset, I'm becoming that annoying person. Like, I'm like, why do y'all do it like this? You could save yourself a lot of time if you did it like you could just take out the
Like,
middleman.
like us free rangers.
Yes, like us free rangers. So, which I know that causes a lot of stress and anxiety for some, but it's just funny how God will just confirm the giftings and the callings that he has in you. He's like, see, this is why you homeschool, continue to do it. You're on the right, you're on the right path. And I just, there is no one perfect path for
So
everyone.
true.
That's the thing. Like, homeschooling is not the end all be all best form of education ever, nor is public school, nor is private school. You just got to pick what works for your lifestyle and your family and
Yeah.
stuff like that. So that has been all this. That's the page. It's so boring and seems dumb to even talk about, but that's the page of my life. And I'm like, I'm ready to go back to fun stuff, Leslie.
I understand. We've had a full week here too. We started school and for the most part, totally uneventful. I will say it was kind of funny this week. We have a back to school night where the night before school starts, where actually 2 nights before school starts, where you go and you get your schedule and you find your locker and you go find all your classes and meet your teachers and stuff. And so we did that with Camden, who's started 7th grade. And so we did the middle school first, and that was much as exactly like you would expect. Like, we went class to class, we shook the teacher's hands. A lot of them know him or know him by proxy because his brother was a 7th grader there too. And so we did all that. And then it was, okay, now we're going to go to the high school. And our kids are at, I said this before, they're at private school. So they're on the same campus, but 2 separate buildings. And so then we walked over to the high school for Renner to do the same thing for 9th grade. And it was like a completely different experience. We walk in the high school doors and I'm thinking, oh, we're going to walk around with him class to class. We walk in and it was like, all the parents were like holding up the walls and all the high schoolers were just like milling about. And suddenly I realized, oh, this is not cool. Like, we're going to get kicked out of this process quick by him. And so we walk in and we're like, okay, so do you want us to walk around with you? He's like, nope, I'll just text you when I'm ready to go home. And so we got a copy of his schedule. And so John and I walked all around, found his classes. But of course, our student who's going to be in these classes is not even with us.
No.
And so John was like, should we meet the teacher? I was like, how weird is that? To be like, hi, our kid's going to be in your class this year, but he doesn't have the decency to walk around with his parents and come meet you himself. So I was like, no, let's just like make visual, we know where he is visually in the building.
Yeah.
So we found a few other parents that we hadn't seen over the summer and caught up. But it was so funny to me to like stand on the periphery and watch all these high schoolers. They were I haven't been in a high school in a really long time. Like, I've been out of school a long time and I don't hang around high schoolers regularly. And so obviously that's about to change, but it was so funny to watch because they all did the same thing. They pack up in like groups of anywhere between 2 and 10.
Yes.
And they're like little amoebas that just like go together all down the hallway. And so when we got home that night, I was like, okay, so did you find your classes? He's like, no, I didn't even look. And I was like, okay, well, I picked up this map for you. So when you go on the first day, you might want to check out where you're actually going.
Right.
And then the next morning he had freshman orientation for an hour and a half at the school. So I drove them back over there. And sure enough, I mean, these educators are way ahead of the parents because they all knew that at the back to school night, none of these students are going to look for their classes. So they took them on a tour and showed them where all their classes were going to be, which was great. But then the other funny story that came out of this whole week experience is the assistant principal. And so the assistant principal, as in many high schools, the assistant principal is not just the assistant principal, he's also the baseball coach, right? Like, there's always, we all had those teachers,
multiple roles.
Not only am I the history teacher, but I also coach softball, right? Like, we all had those teachers growing up. And so their assistant principal also is the baseball coach. And apparently he's the he's laying down the law. Like he's the law. I'm thinking they're like him and the principal are like good cop, bad cop. That's sort of
Yeah.
what I'm piecing together. Well, he's the bad cop. And so at the freshman orientation, Renner told us he got up there and he was like in his very coach voice, and he's like, I want you to know I got 56 cameras all over this building. And if you think you're going to get away with something, you better know I'm going to find out. And you might try to hide in the bathroom, but I'm going to pursue you with a passion into that bathroom and figure out what you're up to. And so then later Ritter said that he was, they broke them all up into these tour groups to go around the building. And so he's with this group and one of his best friends, Jake, is with him. And he's like, these high school girls are like showing us around the building. And I turned to Jake to like say something to him, nothing wrong, Mom. I was just going to ask him a question. And out of nowhere, the assistant principal shows up and he's like, son, can you even hear what she's saying while you're trying to talk to your friend? I was like, oh my gosh, we haven't even started school and you're already making an impression on the bad cop. Then yesterday on the first day of school, he's sitting in English class and he said that his seat is like right next to the door that when you walk in.
Yeah.
And he's like, but I kind of can't see the door open. My back's sort of to it. And he said, out of nowhere, again, the assistant principal shows up and starts kind of barking in the classroom. And Ritter's like, I know I'm on his bad list. I'm like, you can't be on his bad list. You haven't even been there 24 hours yet. Like I said, do you really think you're the kind of kid that all these things that he's laying down the law about, that they really apply to you? He's like, no. And I was like, then don't worry about it. Like, don't have a guilty conscience if you're not doing anything guilty to make you guilty. Right. But it was just so funny. It totally made me think of like, Mr. Rooney from Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Like, I'm going to get you, Bueller, like,
yes.
I love that no matter how many years and centuries go by, there's still those types of characters in the high school. And it just made me smile this week to think through all that. So
it's true. And I feel like a shout out to all the teachers and administrators that are showing up, that have prepared their classrooms and and the coaches and things like that. Like, they really are. They're amazing. They're amazing. I watched a cheesy movie. It's kind of cheesy. It was called Remember the Goal. Have you heard about that? It's on YouTube, and it's about like a track coach, and it's a Christian movie. It's a little bit cheesy, but I watched it with Karis, my 11-year-old, and she's like, that was actually pretty good. And I'm like getting all teary in the movie and stuff like that. So it was about this track coach and then kids showing up to practice and how she trained them and how she coached them. And she just kept saying, like, remember the goal, remember the goal. Like, the goal is to actually win. It may look like we're losing right now, but we're eventually going to win in the long run. So just kind of, y'all should check it out. It's on YouTube.
Remember the Goal. Okay.
Remember the Goal. It was a good, feel good, class teacher type of, I don't know, teacher student. It had good morals, good lessons in it and stuff like that. So that was another one of the things that I watched. I don't even watch television or movies, but that was my cheesy movie of the week that I watched. And I was like, oh, gives you all the feels.
I love all those movies. Remember the Titans. I love it. I love all those kinds of sports themed movies are so great. So encouraging. Speaking of sports, we have our first football scrimmage tonight, and it's probably going to be 100 degrees in the stands, let alone who knows how hot it'll be on the field. So has he started football and everything?
We had our first scrimmage this week as well. So they won, which was awesome. And I've been marking on the calendar. We don't have a game tonight, which is Friday night whenever we're recording this. So we don't have a game tonight. But our first game is so nice of the coaches. They picked a team 2 hours away.
Oh gosh.
I'm so excited.
The caravan.
Yeah. So 2 hours there, 2 hours playing, 2 hours coming home. Game doesn't start till 7:30 at night. I'm like, are there not enough? I do not understand that logic of like, oh, let's find a team that's so far away when there's plenty of teams that are close by that you could play, but whatever.
They don't ask us. They just plan the schedule. You know how that goes.
Yeah. So we'll show up. I just start listening to a lot of good books and podcasts, and that's what I'm like, oh, good. A few hours in the car. That's a few hours of listening to a good book. So
love it. Well, I know one thing I wanted to chat with you about is we both have had kids who have sometimes, when you're starting something new, whether that's a new school year or a new activity or something, they kind of have to push through anxiety or fear of trying something new for the first time. And you and I were chatting before we started recording a little bit about something that you've walked through with Corey recently. And I think made me think about how, again, with it being kind of the start of a new school year, there may be parents that are listening to this who are saying, like, yeah, that's my kid. Like they're nervous about the first day of
Yes.
school, or they're nervous about, making friends or fitting in,
Yeah.
or feeling like it's gonna, be a good experience for them. And so tell me a little bit about what happened with Corey this
Yeah.
week and kind of how you helped her.
Okay, so this kind of started a few weeks ago. Well, okay, let me give you all the little backstory to get you where we are today. What happened this week? So, on our way home from Florida over the summertime, I was not really paying attention to what she was eating, but we stopped at McDonald's. She got like a coffee. Wanted to get like an iced coffee. Yeah, give my 8-year-old the iced coffee or whatever. I'm like, whatever. Road trip. We're on vacation. It's fine. Got some pancakes. Believe we stopped at Bucky's, the most
Oh yeah.
amazing gas station ever. I think she got a slushie, just one sugary junk after the next. Well, when we were about an hour from home, all of that started crashing in her system.
Mm,
And so, if anybody's experienced that where you've had too much caffeine and sugar in your system, and then when it crashes, like when you kind of crash, like kind of gives you the jitters, the shakes, you feel like you can't always get your breath really good because you've just had too much stuff in your system, plus just riding in a car all day. Well, it made her like feel anxious
mm.
and I'm like, what did you eat today? And then I'm like, oh, you've had nothing but crap all day long. No wonder, no wonder you feel this way. So, fast forward, we at our church, we had a family service at church this past weekend. Well, sure enough, she ate a donut. I think she had some Skittles. And then we're all in church together, and they had all the youth. They had it was a whole family service. So normally
Yep.
where kids go to childcare,
Yep. We had the
they
same
didn't.
service. Mhm.
Everybody was there. And so it was awesome, but it was loud and it was just a lot of people. And she's like, I feel like I can't catch my breath. Like I'm feeling like that anxious feeling. And so I'm like, you're fine. Like you're fine. It's probably the sugar again. And but it's like this little bitty it's like a little bit of anxiety. And my
Mhm.
husband has struggled with anxiety. Have not struggled with it, but living with it, I'm like, I know what that's like, and I know how very real it is. So then another time then this week, she stayed up super late at night. And then she was so excited to go back to school shopping that she woke up super early in the morning, because I was like, we have to go before 9 a.m. because I got to pick your sister up somewhere. So she went to bed like after midnight probably. And then the dogs my son went fishing at 5 in the morning. The dogs started barking. So she hadn't had like any sleep. And the girl has like major FOMO. Like, I don't want to miss out on anything.
Yeah.
So she had been up since like 4:35 in the morning after hardly sleeping at all. So by 3 o'clock in the afternoon, she's so deliriously tired, but she's feeling like anxious, like I can't go to sleep because what if I don't
Aw.
wake up? Like, what if I don't, like, she's feeling all this anxiety. And I'm like, Corey, this isn't like, you're fine. There's nothing wrong with you. And so all of that to say, she started having these like, what if I start feeling that feeling of anxiousness and I'm not by you? I don't want to go. Like, I don't want to go. I don't want to do
Mm.
things. So she takes dance and she loves dance. Like, she cannot wait to go to dance. She's always like, what time's my dance class? And she takes several classes or whatever. So we get to dance this week, and she was kind of quiet on the car right there. And this is the child that never stops talking. Like, she just always has something to say. So I'm kind of like, what's going on? What's wrong? And we get to dance, and she did not want to go in. And she's like, I'm not going to go. No, mom, I just can't go. I don't think I feel good. And I'm like, you feel fine. Like, you don't have a fever. Your stomach doesn't, like, no, I just don't think I want to go. Like, I could just start telling in her mind. She's like, I know she's having these thoughts of, what if I feel bad? What if I can't leave? And what if I feel trapped? So therefore, I'm just not going to go. And then as the parent, I'm kind of like, okay, do you coddle that? Do you say like, well, maybe you do feel bad, and let's just stay home? Or do you push through it like, no, just suck it up and go into the class?
Mhm.
And so I prayed with her in the car. I was like very calm and very affirmative, telling her, you're fine. Nothing's going to be wrong with you. You're fine. Like, I'm taking authority over this spirit of anxiety, over fear,
Yeah.
everything I know to do. And then finally, I was just like, I think you need to go to class. Like, you're really fine. And because then it turned into oh no, I'll be embarrassed because I'm late and I don't want to be embarrassed. I don't want to walk in
Mm.
now. And I'm like, no, your friends won't care. Just go, just go. Well, I walked around the side of the van and I opened up the car door because I wasn't gonna like pull her out of the car.
Yeah.
She's big now. And I'm like, but you need to get out of the car. And right at that time, her teacher popped out and is like, is Corey there? And I'm like, yes, she's right here, but she's having a hard time. Do you have any encouraging words for her? And her teacher's like, Corey, we need you. Come on, we need you. And she's like, and then it was like a light bulb just switched in her mind. And she's like, okay, do I bring my tap shoes or my jazz shoes today? And her teacher's like, just bring your body. Come on, get in here. Your friends are waiting on you. Come on. And she got in the car or went into the dance class and then she got out later and she's like, that was great. It was so fun. And I'm like, see, I'm proud of you for going and pressing through your fear. So I all of that to say is that our kids are, I'm sure with going back to school this year, there's a lot of angst and a
Yeah.
lot of emotions. And it's hard as the parent to know, like, do I push them and be like, suck it up and you need to get in your class?
Yeah.
Or is it like, no, this is really real. We need to step back a little bit and reassess what's going on. So anyway, I just ultimately though, thank you to the teacher for being the one to say, hey, come on, let's go. And she just obeyed. And she was like, okay, fine, let's go, let's get out of there. And then she's been fine ever since. So I don't know what's going on in my child's life other than I feel like it's just probably like a lot of us when we overanalyze and we overthink things and then that
Yeah.
stops us from
Yeah.
doing. But if I were the enemy, that's what I'd do. I'd stop you from doing the thing that brings you so much joy and that
Yes.
you love doing.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah, and I think I was just thinking as you're sharing that, there's so many parents that their kids are going back to school, and many of them, it's like the first time they're going back in person since March of 2020 because
Yeah,
a lot of schools didn't meet at all in person last year. And so there may be some anxiety with kids about going back in a classroom and being around other kids. And I was chatting with a friend this week whose son started kindergarten, and he's really having a hard time leaving her every morning. And the teachers are being, a tremendous help, kind of getting him into the building and into the classroom. But there's also this, I think, as a mom, as a parent, you have this fear of like, I don't want this thing that's actually a good thing to suddenly become a bad thing in the mind of this child because they've got some sort of you know
association.
misconception about that this is not good or not safe, or they just think I have to physically be there in order for them to feel confident. And so
Yes.
it's a real thing I think kids are walking through, and especially over the last year. And so I was just sharing with my friend who was sharing with me about her son. I just was talking with her about like, like teaching, like praying with him over him, but also teaching him to kind of say little short prayers for himself, like
Yeah.
when he feels anxious or nervous, to say like, Jesus, I know you're with me, or God makes me strong, and God makes me brave. And it takes time I was a kid who struggled with a lot of fear, and it took, my fear was not fear of new experiences. Mine was fear at night and going to bed and feeling safe. But it takes time with a child. I feel like, at least my experience has been that, to kind of walk with them through that, and also using, for me, what's worked is like using God's word, teaching
Right.
them God's word, having them actually say God's word, even if it's sort of the sort of elementary version of whatever the principle is that the Bible is teaching you. And then having them do that over and over and over, and eventually what I just have found is that it does help build your confidence. It builds their
Yeah.
confidence. But I also think it's important to like advocate for your kid. If my friend was telling me that they had anticipated that this was going to be a tough transition for their son, and so they had met with the kindergarten teacher and the principal at the school, and just kind of explained like, hey, this is sort of a new behavior that's popped up over the last several
Yeah.
months, and so this is what we're doing. But don't be afraid. Like I
Yeah.
remember, for any parents that are like first time your kids going off to school for the very first time, I remember I didn't know that when Renner was starting kindergarten, I didn't really know that I had a voice, that I could advocate for my son.
Yeah.
And I kind of had to learn that the hard way because he had a really rough entry into kindergarten. I mean, I joke like it wasn't funny then, but it's kind of funny now. Like kindergarten was the worst year of my life. The year you think
So
it's going to be like it's just like
sweet.
cutting and pasting and coloring all day long. No, it was a really rough parenting. It was a rough school year. It was just hard for
Yeah.
various reasons. But some of it was I didn't know that I had and at the time we were in a public school, I didn't know that I could advocate for him. I didn't know that I had those kinds of I thought like I just like I gave him up to the school and kind of that was it. And then, that was a long time ago, 10 years ago. And school's very different now. But so I just want to encourage a parent out there, like if you are having a kid who's struggling, whether it's with friendships or connection or leaving the house or walking in the front door of the school, like don't hesitate to go to the teacher. Don't hesitate to go to the counselor in the school. Don't hesitate to get help if you need
Yeah.
it to help you kind of get some strategies to help your child build some confidence. And don't be hard on yourself. Like that's the other thing I think as a parent,
Yeah.
you can take your child's behavior and suddenly say to yourself, well, this is a reflection on me as a bad parent.
Right.
And that's not the case at all. I mean, we all, we don't always know what the root of someone's fear or anxiety is, but it feels very real to them when they're walking through it.
Yeah.
And so having compassion for yourself and compassion for your child, I think goes a long way. I think you showing Corey compassion this week when she's,
Yeah.
in your mind, you're like, there's no reason that she should feel this way. But if you sort of approached her that with that, like, suck it up, buttercup, if you kind of
Right.
were more like that, like she probably would have dug in her heels even more. Right.
Oh, yeah.
Or it teaches us, sometimes it teaches a kid, like, you better stuff down those fears because
Right.
mom and dad don't think that's okay. And then
Right.
that kind of leaks out in other unhealthy ways. So,
So,
yeah.
you're definitely spot on because I was like, I don't want to dismiss these real feelings that are real in her head, but yet I
Mhm.
also do not want to give fear power, any more power than
That's
it's
right.
already trying to take. Also, on a few of my walks this week, I started listening to the book called "Are My Kids on Track" by Sissy Goff. Have you heard of that one?
No, I know who Sissy
It's
Goff is, but I haven't read that book.
Okay, so it's the 12 emotional, social, and spiritual milestones your child needs to reach. Let me tell you, I was thinking it was going to be for like parents of younger kids, but I got so much out of this book. It's one of those that it was like having a counselor in my earbuds of giving me practical things that I'm like, oh, have I even reached this emotional milestone? Social milestone. But I would highly recommend that. We'll link that in the show notes. It's
Yeah.
called Are My Kids on Track? It was just like having I don't know, I can't even remember all the stuff in it. I don't want to ruin it for you, but it was like having a counselor in my pocket. And every time I listen,
So let me ask you this. Does it not only like identify kind of where kids should be in all of those
yeah,
areas, but does it give you recommendations and tips on what to
yeah.
do to help them?
Yes, it gives I'll say one of the stories that was towards the end of it was talking about older kids that I guess Sissy, she's a part of some camp where I can't remember the camp name that she mentioned, but they have a camp and as older kids come to it, they're like, man, this is dumb. I don't really want to be here. Kind of a whole, just like how Renner in all of the
Yeah.
high schoolers act like we're
Teenagers
too
are.
cool for this.
Yes.
And one of the things that they said was how they need a mission and a team, like something to get behind. They
Mm.
want to know that their life has meaning and that it has purpose and that they're cheering something on. So one of the things that they did at the camp, she goes, I didn't tell the campers till afterwards, but we have a bunch of boats and they were thinking they're just going to go tubing and skiing and stuff like that on the lake. She goes, but on purpose, all of the boats kind of broke down out
Mm.
in the middle of the lake. And so and so the kids had to one by one they got out of the boat to help push. It wasn't too far out in the lake. I guess it was or maybe they like ran up on a sandbar or something like that and they had to get off the sandbar. So basically they staged this problem and the kids had to one by one get out of the boat and start helping and work as a team with each other to help fix the problem. And it was in that moment when they all had to basically get out of the boat and work and do a job together that they bonded, they had a great time, that they started joking around, their walls started coming down.
Mm.
And so her point was that teenagers, give them a job or a purpose to get behind. I feel like that's where a lot of kids get in trouble, is because they are bored. They're bored.
Yeah.
They're just downright bored, and they don't know what to do with their time. And then when you don't know what to do, you just kind of go through life aimlessly, like, well, what am I supposed to do? And then before you know it, you're getting in trouble, because that's just the only thing that what there was to do, just get in trouble. So
Yeah.
which, okay, so switching gears a little bit, another thing that I did this week, my son did come to me and he was like, Mom, I need to work. Like, I need some. And I'm like, yeah, you do. You do need to
I'm
work.
glad you clued into that.
I'm glad, yeah. But he plays a lot of sports, so there's a lot of his time is limited to, like, go say work at a traditional, restaurant or anything like that. And we're very entrepreneurial in our house. So he's like, please post on Facebook like that I can pressure wash or split wood or haul junk or anything like that. And so I did yesterday. I just posted a cute picture of him holding up some fish, because I'm like, so like, just totally grabbing for attention. But I was like, my son he's responsible. He can drive, he can haul a trailer, he can pressure wash, he can haul junk. And sure enough, the boy got 2 different offers for people who need help hauling junk and doing stuff around their house. So anyways, I was like, here, you got to just now check back in with me and make sure I followed through on all of these jobs. But anyways, that book, Are My Kids on Track? It got me thinking, how can I create opportunities for my kids to have more purpose than just going through the day-to-day school and sports activities? Like, I want them to know that there's a purpose behind going to school. There's a purpose behind doing your homework. There's a purpose behind going to dance. Exercising every day, that kind of stuff. So anyways, those are all the different little things that happen that's the page from my life.
Page from our lives this week.
Yes.
Very exciting, but definitely moments that, made us laugh, and opportunities to help our kids grow and help out our friends. So
I do need to share a good, I'm sorry, I'm so chatty today.
No, let's go for it, Corey.
So yeah.
I have no idea where she gets it.
She comes by it, honestly. So I feel like all of our stories, they definitely have power to bring hope and stuff like that. And so one of the things that Leslie and we were talking about is bombarded with in our news feeds of information, and you better do this or you're going to die, or you better not do that or you're going to die, or you better, there's just so much going on outside in the world. And with COVID popping back up, it's been awful. I hate that I'm like, I don't even want to give it a name. I just don't even want to name it. But it has, of course, run through my family. Most of us all got COVID back in December, and we recovered. It was not fun, but we all recovered from it. And my in-laws, it went through their house as well. But my sister-in-law has 12 kids. So not all 12 got COVID when they got it originally, but 3 more of them got it this past week. And one of them had to go in the hospital. And this particular niece of mine, she was adopted from the Ukraine and has overcome so many challenges. But one of the assignments my sister-in-law gave her was to handwrite the scriptures. And so she has copied word for word the Bible. I think she's finished with the Old Testament and onto the New Testament now. Like a scribe, she has written every single word down. So while they were in the hospital, she wasn't writing the word or anything like that. She just was on the verge of needing a ventilator almost. But God turned things around for her, and she ended up being discharged within a few days later. But she was up to like 100% oxygen, and they moved her. They were in ICU for a little bit. They moved her down to a regular room when she started showing signs of improvement, and she was still on oxygen. And they went to turn the oxygen down and found out that the machine was unplugged, and she had been breathing on room air that whole day by herself. Wow. Which was absolutely incredible that her stats were fine and she was breathing on her own. So I just want to share an encouraging story that there, as many awful, hard deaths that there are those that are surviving as well. Mm-hmm. So we got to cling to some hope. So, yes. And there's hope even in the other, when the stories are on the other side. Yeah. There's still hope.
Yeah, so, for sure. It's good.
Anyways, yeah, we got a lot.
There's a lot, friends. So That's the page from our lives this week. We hope you were enjoyed our little catch-up session, and
Right.
we will plan to see you guys next week. And
Yes.
until then, we love to hear from you. So engage with us on social media. We're trying to get more active out there. So share the word with your friends about our show, like our posts. If you're not following us on social media, we're on Instagram and Facebook. We'd love to have you along for the journey.
That's
So,
right.
all right, everybody. Well, we'll see you next week. Bye.
Yep. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye. Well, that closes another chapter on the Page of Our Lives podcast. Did you know we're on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube? Well, we are. Just search for Page of Our Lives podcast. Curious where to find things we mention on the show? Check out our show notes on our website, pageofourlivespodcast.com. And if you liked today's episode, be sure and share it with a friend. And we would love for you to leave a rating or a review in your podcast player. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.